Hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. Today I have 8 new resin sea creature DIY ideas using the Dollar Tree resin. I wanted to give Dollar Tree resin another try. So this is the mask that I use. I actually purchased this on Amazon. I will have it linked in my Amazon shop below under resin. Works really well for the fumes from resin mixing, and I also craft out in my garage. It's always a good idea to wear eye protection as well. I got those on Amazon. Those were really inexpensive. And the gloves I use are actually just gloves from Dollar Tree. I also found that these little acrylic boards from Dollar Tree work perfect for moving your molds around because of course you're going to have to let them set up and cure. For the first one, the mold I'm going to use is a sea turtle. It's so cute. It's a nice, thick, high-quality mold that I actually got on Temu. I got mine on sale for like $1.64, but it looks like they're like normally like $3.98. Still well worth it. I found that it was a really high-quality mold. And then for the resin, it goes in and out of stock online. I do like to buy mine by the case. It's easier that way, but my stores have been finally carrying it. It's $1.25. You need part A and part B. It's like a 1-to-1 mixture. And so that's what we're going to get started with today. So there's 1 ounce in each bottle, but we're also going to be adding add-ins with this one. So I think that's going to be plenty of resin because we're going to be using some of the Dollar Tree crushed glass, and I think that's going to take up the rest of the volume. I thought it'd be fun to mix colors, so I picked up some of the blue and some of the like light green crushed glass from Dollar Tree. And then I'll show you how I mix this. One thing I love about the Dollar Tree resin is the bottles are nice and small, so you don't have to do any measuring. And just dump 1-to-1. I like to use the little plastic bathroom cups from, I think I get these at Target. They're like 3 to 4 ounces, but they're great for mixing a small quantity like this. And I always like to do part B first because it's thinner and do like the thicker part A into it. I find that that's just a little bit easier as far as getting it into the cup. And then you just have to mix it slowly with a popsicle stick for about a minute. I use these silicone popsicle sticks from Amazon and I absolutely love them. They're so easy to clean up. Once I get it good and mixed, we can start mixing in the crushed glass. So I'm actually going to mix it in with the resin before I pour it in. So I just kind of put it into like a solo cup. And then I'm going to kind of measure with some of the little plastic cups, some of the crushed glass to kind of keep track of how much I'm using. I just put some blue and some green in there together, dump that all in with the resin and coat it. So just using that popsicle stick, I am just coating all of that really good with resin. There's going to be a lot of crushed glass in this one. And I think that looks pretty good. We can start dumping all of the resin coated stones into the mold. I don't dump it all in at once. I make sure that I'm not going to have any like overfill or anything like that. And I want all of the stones to be like spread out really well in all the different areas, like the head, the flippers and stuff like that. They call this like a car freshener mold on Temu, but it's really thick. So I'm not sure why exactly it's called that because that doesn't really make too much sense. But it works great for what we're going to be using it for today. So that looks pretty good. I got most of the stones. One thing you're going to want to do is watch out for bubbles. I'm going to try to pop any bubbles that I might see. You can do that with like, if you're using a silicone mold, you're going to want to use like a long neck lighter like this. That works well. You have to be kind of careful with that. You can also use like your heat gun if you're not worried about like messing up any kind of pigment or anything like that in there. So I just kind of blow the bubbles out and let this mold sit overnight. So it has been sitting overnight. It's time to see what we have. So this is the funnest part. It is just taking the mold off and seeing what you're left behind with. And look at that cool sea turtle shell on there. And you can see through it all of that blue and green sea glass. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, one thing you can find when you're working with resin is it can kind of have a lip on it when you're using a mold like that from the bottom of it, and mine was a little bit sharp. So I'm going to try trimming that up. It's not super hard yet. I just let it sit overnight. So what I'm going to do is go in and trim that off. I just carefully went around all the edges with my razor blade, trimming off any excess, any sharp parts of it. But since it's kind of dark, if you just lay it down like that, I thought it'd be really fun to make it into a light fixture. I do want to bring out the detail of that shell structure though. And so I'm using Posca paint pens. They seem to work pretty well on resin. And I just kind of draw in the pattern that's already on there of the sea turtle shell. And I did it kind of in a contrasting like light blue. Something that'll look nice with it, but really kind of define the shell on there. And then I want to make it into a light fixture. I was trying to find something inexpensive from Dollar Tree, and so I'm going to try their LED push lights. They're only $1.25 and they're super bright, cheaper than like the little light kits you can get on Amazon. So I'm going to try to make my own. So I want it to be raised up above the light a little bit so the whole turtle will be illuminated. So I'm going to use a couple things together. I'm going to use these. These are the little square wood planks from the Dollar Tree, along with one of the Jenga blocks. I get those at Five Below. They're great for crafting. And I think I can just put all the items together like that and make a really cute little light fixture with that LED light. So I want to prepare the wood, kind of make it look a little bit coastal. So to do that, I am going to do like a light distressed wood with some ivory paint with some antique wax by Waverly mixed in. It's going to give me this really nice like driftwood kind of color. And I just put enough to cover the top of the wood slice and just use a baby wipe to kind of go over, and that's going to kind of stain the wood. You're still going to be able to see the wood grain through there. It's kind of like a stain, and I do the same thing with the little Jenga block here. And I love these giant Jenga blocks. They're just a really great size for crafting. I get these every year at Five Below. Now I add a little bit more of the antique wax by Waverly to get a little darker tone, and then I go in and distress again, trying to give a little bit more variation in the color. One thing I noticed was that thin piece of wood, the square, was pretty thin from the Dollar Tree. So I think I'm going to have to double it up to give it a more flat, substantial basis with no like warping or anything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and really only have to paint the sides of that one. That one's going to be the bottom one. And we can just pair them together. It's just like any thin sign from the Dollar Tree. I can just hot glue them together and just make it thicker and take away that bowing. It's going to provide a little bit more of a more substantial base too. So that is the setup for our little light fixture. I just used some hot glue to attach the two pieces of wood together. And then I'm just going to sit my light on there so that I can still change out the batteries and my LED push light. And then I'll have the turtle there in front. I don't want the turtle like falling over or anything like that. So I'm actually going to glue it with some really thick glue. This is the Gorilla Glue Clear Grip. It says it works well for glass, plastic, things like that. So I thought it would work well for resin. So I actually used that to glue to the wood. I thought it would be a little bit stronger than hot glue. And it looks so cool all lit up. So this is kind of what it looks like during the daytime if you have the light on. And if you set this somewhere where, you know, you're going to get some light from outside, it will illuminate it as well. It's just if you were just to lay it flat without any light, you're not going to see all those beautiful sea glass pieces inside that I think are so pretty about this sea turtle. And let me show you what it looks lit up at night. Isn't that so pretty? Hey guys, are you enjoying today's video? If you are, be sure to hit that like button. It always helps my videos here on YouTube. Okay, the next mold I also got on Temu for about $3. It is a turtle tray. And it looks like it's sold out right now, but it looks like they have other listings for the same item on there. The reason I got these on Temu is because I had a discount. I've never ordered anything from them before. And I had found a better selection on there than Amazon. This one I want to try mixing in sand to see if we can make this sea turtle tray out of sand. And I also want to try out the Dollar Tree mica powder. This is also $1.25 found in the Crafter Square near like the resin and stuff like that. And it has these like bright, beautiful colors. I want to try the light blue. And it kind of reminds me of a glittery eyeshadow. I think you can actually even use eyeshadow with resin as well. But it's got this great shimmer. And I think you could probably use like eyeshadow little applicators for this as well. I didn't really have any handy, so I'm just using a small paintbrush. And I'm just carefully going over all of like the spots, like kind of the detail there on the shell of the sea turtle and making that blue. I thought that would be a fun contrast against the tan sand from the Dollar Tree when I mix that together with the resin. For this one, it's a larger tray. One way you can find out the volume you're going to need with resin is to fill them up with water before you do your project so that they'll be dry when you go to use them. And what I did is made a list of all of the different molds and how much resin that they could hold with water just by kind of doing an experiment right before. And I found that this tray would hold about 6 ounces. So I'm going to try 4 ounces together there of resin, plus the sand will fill up the rest of the volume. Again, I'm going to use some of those acrylic trays from Dollar Tree and then just mix up my resin. 1 part B, 1 part A, and I'm going to mix it all together in a larger like solo cup. That way I have room for sand and everything that I want to mix together. You'll have to remember when mixing your Dollar Tree resin to mix it slowly. You're going to want to do that to make sure it gets really well mixed. Make sure to scrape the sides when you're mixing as well. And you're going to want to avoid bubbles if possible. And I'll try to leave links for everything. I have an Amazon shop with a resin category for the items that I get on Amazon. Also, like the Dollar Tree resin, it does go in and out of stock. I do like to buy it. I think it's $30 for a case of it, but it's great because you get like half the A, half the B. And then it's time to mix in some sand. I start with a cupful of that sand, mixing it together to see how thick that is. I think I get it fairly thick, but I decide to add some more. In the final product, I wish I would actually use some more sand. It was getting pretty thick at this point though, so I thought it would probably be a good time to spread it out. So once I get that mixed together, I'm just going to dump the resin and sand into the tray mold, trying to make sure to let it kind of seep into the different parts without overlapping and causing a mess. And kind of like just kind of spreading that out in areas where it still needs to fill. And resin is self-leveling, so you don't have to worry about it being flat as long as it's on a fairly flat surface like that. So just trying to make sure I get it all in there, and I think I have just the right amount. Now, if I would have added more sand, I think it would have been thicker. Right now, the sand kind of sinks, as you can see, and there was a little bit of moisture being here in Florida. I store my sand in my garage, so I'm just using a lighter to try to get rid of some of those bubbles that kind of came to the top. You could see them there. It was kind of like a foam, and the lighter worked really well for that. But what happens is the sand kind of sinks, and the clear resin stays on the top. So I let it sit overnight, and here's the exciting part. Let's see what we can get. And as you can see, there's kind of a sand layer and there's kind of a clear layer on the bottom. That's why I was saying next time I think I would use more sand. But look how beautiful this turtle tray turned out. I love the combination with that blue mica powder and the sand. I think it's so beautiful. You can use this as a soap dish. I think I'm going to put this next to my kitchen sink to like hold my sponge. I think that'd be really pretty. I have a sea turtle theme going on in my kitchen, and I think it's going to look really coastal and beautiful in there. Here's a little bit closer look of it. It's got a shiny surface. Anytime you're working with a like shiny mold, it's going to give you that shiny finish. on your resin project. And oh my gosh, the fact that it's made out of sand, I think just makes the sea turtle so adorable. What do you guys think about this one? Now, some of these molds I actually got on Amazon. I got the 6-pack of sea creature molds that are really a nice size for $14.99 on Amazon. You're going to get all of these sea creatures. It says currently unavailable, but I recently just purchased this, so I'm thinking it's like most online things, it's going to go in and out of stock. But they have a lot of molds like this on Amazon as well, and pretty inexpensive since you're looking at the fact that I got 6 of them. For this one, it is the dolphin. The dolphin can hold up to 3 ounces, I noticed. And so I have 2 ounces. We're going to add some things to it. So I think 2 ounces is going to be plenty. And what I want to do is try to do like a color variant. I found that Dollar Tree also has like a resin pigment. So I want to try that out. And I also want to try mixing in seashells. This is the resin pigment, the ink that we're going to try. It's the blue. And we're going to be using some of the little tiny seashells from the Dollar Tree. So to start with, I just take the clear resin and I start filling in the dolphin with it. I want to make sure I'm not overlapping. It is a thinner mold than I was working with before. And then I just take the pigment ink and I just start squirting like dots in here. Doesn't really matter where, just kind of experimenting to see what I get with that. And then I continue pouring the clear resin on top of it to start like spreading the pigment ink out a little bit. Then I go in with just a toothpick and I am just kind of grabbing the pigment and dragging it. I wanted to give like a ocean appearance where it's all different shades of blue. And so I make sure to go around all the edges so I don't have like just areas of the dolphin that are clear. I want everything to be kind of blue and have that beautiful like striation and color. And then it's time for seashells. I just start using, I'm trying to find the smaller ones of these shells because it's not a very thick mold and I don't want them sticking out too much, but I just kind of spread those all around. Now, I don't know if it's because of the shells I was using, like the little spiral shells, that they have a like air trapped inside of them, but I noticed that some of them sank right away. Some of them needed some encouragement, so I just tried to, from time to time, go in there with some toothpicks and kind of push them down a little bit into the resin a little bit more so they're not all just floating on top. And I had a little bit of resin left in my cup, so I just went ahead and coated the top of the shells as well. And again, trying to make sure that the blue color is spread out. I don't want just the head to be clear. So again, just using that toothpick, that worked really well for spreading everything out and trying to make my seashells and not float up so much like that. And try to keep them down. Any air bubbles I took care of with just a lighter, and I'm just going to let this sit overnight. It hardened up nicely. This is how it turned out. And it's time to see the results. I think this turned out really cool. I loved playing with the resin ink. I think it's really pretty, and it's got a great blue texture to the dolphin, and the seashells look so fun in there. Now, once you do these resin projects, you have to figure out how you're going to display your artwork. And I thought this would be really cute to make like a little mini wind chime. I've already got seashells going on it, so I thought I could add some seashells to it and make it into a wind chime. Now, my mold was a little bit bent here at the bottom, which kind of caused like kind of a weird little corner in there. And I don't know if that is just from how they were packaged, but I just used my razor blade and trimmed that up and made it a lot less noticeable on this cute little dolphin. Isn't that so pretty? Now, for the seashells, I am going to try my new resin drill. I got this for resin. We're going to be using it today. I got it on Amazon. It was $16.99. I will put that in my resin section of my Amazon shop below as well. And I wanted to see if I could also use it for seashells. These are some small seashells that I found recently in Sanibel Island, and I thought they'd be really cute. So I'm going to try to pick out a variety of these and see if I can drill holes in them so that I can easily string up a wind chime. And I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I think that the drill would prefer resin because it's probably softer than these shells. But it actually did a really good job of going right through these seashells. And so I am just drilling a tiny hole there at the base of each shell that we can then add some fishing line to and string this all up. I was trying to decide how many I wanted to use. I always like to use like an odd number, and so just trying to see exactly how long I want it to be as well. And I want a little bit of variety in the seashells. It's not going to be a huge wind chime. I thought I could make just like a little mini wind chime with this. And I'm thinking I'm going to need at least 3 rows, and I want the center one to be one longer. So I add just a few more shells, and you know what? That resin drill worked great for it. It's a really tiny drill, and I love it. I think I'm going to be using that a lot for resin projects. So let's try it out on the resin. Now, the resin has sit overnight, so it is not super hard yet, but I think it's plenty hard enough to go ahead and do the drilling on. So I'm going to drill like 3 holes here along the bottom where I want the 3 different strands of seashells to hang on that. And then for the hanger, I actually got some little eye screws from Amazon. These are used in jewelry a lot, but I thought this would make a great hanger for some of these resin projects today that are nice and thin like this. And so you could drill it out. I'm actually just going to use the fact that the resin's not super hard. And it's just a matter of getting them started. You can screw that right into the resin just by applying a little bit of pressure as you're screwing it down. I found that pliers worked pretty well to turn that little eye and screw that in to make a really fun little hanger there for the top. You could also drill a hole there as well if you don't have any of the eye screws. And then I borrowed some fishing line from my husband, and I'm going to start stringing this along. So I just string it through the hole that we drilled there in the dolphin. And I'm just going to tie that off. You're going to want to make sure that you pull that really tight so that it's going to hold and be permanent. One great thing about fishing line is it's not going to be real obvious like twine or anything like that. You're not going to be able to see it really well, but it's still really strong and it's going to hold up well to the weather. And I'm going to do that for each one of the holes. I found that using the pliers to help pull it tight made it nice and strong. The knot, and I need 1 for each one. I'm not really measuring them. I'm kind of estimating how long I think I'm going to need them to be, and then of course double knotting each one and making sure they're good and tight. Once I have them on there, I try to trim up any of the excess fishing line so I only have like 3 lines coming straight down that we can then string the seashells on. And to do the shells, I'm going to do really easy. I just string the shell on and then tie a knot in the fishing line wherever I want that first row of shells to be. And I'm not really going to measure anything. I'm going to kind of use one as reference for the next one. I'm going to have them go straight across all the way down, except for the one in the middle. I'm going to have just one longer. And again, just knotting it, the resin drill drilled a really fine hole in these shells where it's going to hold with just one knot of the fishing line, which made it really nice for stringing a wind chime like this. I'm doing them fairly close together like this so they can kind of jingle against each other, the seashells, to provide the wind chime effect. And I'm just going to string those along. I want them to be kind of evenly spaced out. I'm just kind of estimating exactly where I'm going to want my knot to be. And, having a little bit of area between each row. And I just strung those all up. Again, the middle one, I'm just making it one longer with the fishing line, and pretty easy to string those all up. I usually have used twine for all of my wind chimes that I've done here on my channel, but the fishing line actually worked really well for this. I'm also going to use the fishing line for the hanger right there in the eyelet screw, and just tying a knot to make a hanger for our little mini wind chime with the dolphin on top. And it's so pretty to show you these outside. I wanted to show you how this wind chime looked outside with the natural sunlight coming through that beautiful blue resin with the seashells inside. And trying to make these pieces functional as well, making them into a wind chime is a really fun idea for your resin DIY. Isn't that so pretty? I love it, and I love wind chimes. Hey guys, have you joined my private Facebook group yet? I have it linked in the description of this video. I'd love to see what you're making. You can find out when I post new content. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. My handle on everything is Crafty Beach on YouTube. And I would love to see you over there. Now, this is from that same resin mold kit from Amazon. This one is an octopus. So the volume I found on this one was 3 ounces. So I'm going to mix 2 ounces and I'm going to mix some items to it, but you don't have to use as much resin as it says to. It'll just be a little bit thinner. And I'm actually going to color this one and make this more of a colorful octopus. And I'm also going to be using some of those beautiful glass beads there from the Dollar Tree. This is from the Dollar Tree too. Instead of the pigment ink, they also have these little 4-packs in the Dollar Tree Plus with different colors as well. This one I picked up is like an orange, like pearl color. You do have to kind of open the opening there at the end when you're first using a color. And you can just mix in as much color as you want. What I have found with these little colors for the resin are it takes quite a bit to kind of get a more of a darker color. Even though that looks pretty dark in the cup, it's actually not that dark. You can kind of test on the sides. And if you do any spilling or dripping, just using isopropyl alcohol is really good for cleaning that up if you're working on a resin project. Now this one was a little tricky because it has all these tentacles. I need the resin to kind of run down. So I found that the acrylic tray worked great for this because I could kind of tilt it a little bit and fill up all of the tentacles. For the spots on our octopus, we're going to be using these glass beads from the Dollar Tree. They're so pretty. I picked these up because they had lots of different shades of blue. And I wanted to do this octopus for my son. He loves the blue ringed octopus. And so I thought I can make it look like that by doing an orange octopus with blue spots. If you use these little blue glass beads on their side like that, it's a perfect spot because it's like a ring shape, right? And so I'm going to scatter these all over like an octopus would be spotted by making sure to include them on the body, but also all the tentacles, and just kind of spreading those out. While your resin's wet like this, you can, move everything around and just kind of keep adding until you're happy with it. If I had any of them that kind of tipped over, you couldn't really see like the circle shape. I just went in with my like Cricut weeder and kind of made sure that they were standing up. So you could actually see the spot pattern on these. And this turned out so cool. I love the idea of using the glass beads with the resin. It's really pretty, especially if you're going to be hanging your project in a window, and that's what I did with this one. So this was a pretty thin project. I did let it sit overnight and let it harden, and you can see since I only used 2 ounces how thin it kind of is, and it's flexible at this point when you're taking it out of the mold, but it will stiffen up and become hardened within a day. So I am just making sure that I get that out cleanly, and here is our cute little octopus with the blue rings in it. I think this turned out really cool. It's rather thin and some of the beads are a little bit larger, so it's actually got a little bit of a texture on one side of it. And you can kind of use either side as the front. What I'm going to do is turn mine into a sun catcher for my son's room. So using that resin drill I got on Amazon, I'm just going to drill a hole here in the top of the octopus. And I'm going to attach a suction cup. I picked up this package of suction cups. There's like 30 in there on Amazon for like $6.99. And I needed some, so I thought these would work great. I'm not sure if you can get these at Dollar Tree. I don't think I've ever seen them. But this is a pretty small one, so I think I'm going to use this size of a suction cup. And they just have like a ring on them, so I'm going to use fishing line and just tie a knot with a fishing line around that suction cup, and then I'm going to use that line to tie up my sun catcher. Now, resin projects as sun catchers are kind of a no-brainer because they're so beautiful when you shine the light through them that I think that this is going to look really cute. So just double knotting that, trimming off the excess fishing line right there, And we have a cute little sun catcher. Let me show you how this looks hanging in the window. I think it's so pretty. So you can see that beautiful pearlescent orange pigment that we used in there. And those beautiful blue beads for the octopus, really fun and whimsical. And it looks great if you have any kind of ocean decor in your house. I love it. And so does my son. Okay, the next mold is from the same package. This one is the whale. So I wanted to try something fun with this. The whale is pretty small. It only holds about 2 ounces of resin. I'm actually going to use some of this like hamster bedding. It's like a paper bedding that I picked up at the pet store in blue. And I think it was Steve McDonald. He does a lot of resin videos here on YouTube. And I saw him mixing in some odd items like this. And I wanted to give it a try because it sounded really fun. So again, I'm mixing part B and part A with my resin. And what I'm going to do is leave this clear because I have all the color there in the paper bedding that we're going to mix in with the resin. And I think that's going to provide enough color for this whale project. So once I got my resin mixed well, I'm just going to fill in my mold. And again, kind of tilting it to make sure that it gets good and filled. And then here's where the magic starts. I just start taking that paper bedding and sprinkling it in. It's going to slowly soak into that resin and get wet. It's a very light blue color in the dry form of it, but it's going to be wet, like wet paper. But it's going to be wet with the resin. You can't put anything wet in resin. It always has to be a dry item for it to work well. And so I am just kind of pushing the paper down into the resin. And as you can see, it's soaking up that resin and it's changing color, becoming darker and appearing kind of more like a stone. And that is the effect I ended up getting from this, and I absolutely love it. So I just take some smaller pieces of the paper to fill up any gaps I have. I want pretty good coverage of the blue everywhere and just kind of pushing that down into the resin, making sure it's wet. Then I take the rest of the resin that I had there in my cup and kind of go over the top of it, sealing everything together. Now this was definitely an experiment with a fun mix-in like this, but I absolutely love how it turned out. I did notice a little bit of bubbling, so I used a lighter. I let my whale sit overnight, and now it's time to see how this turned out. We're going to remove the silicone mold, and look how cool this is. The paper really actually gives you the illusion that it's like stones in there, and it's really bright with a lot of pigment in there. And I thought we would just kind of display this one as a piece of art because that's really what it is. I'm going to use one of those Jenga wood blocks from Five Below again. And I want to kind of give this one a driftwood feel as well. So I'm using like an ivory acrylic with some antique wax by Waverly. We're going to stain that wood. I just wanted to do a simple wood base on this one. It's nice and clear and bright, so it doesn't really need a light behind it. So I think this will be fine on its own, kind of as a standalone piece. And again, trying to show you ways that you can display your resin pieces and making them functional decor pieces for your home. I added a little bit more antique wax by Waverly to distress that with as well, making sure to get it good and dry. And again, I'm using that really strong Gorilla Glue clear grip to attach this. One thing that it does say on there for a more permanent bond is to put it on both surfaces and let it sit for 2 minutes before you put it together. So I just used a pen to kind of show me exactly where I need to put the glue on the wood block, and I do that. I'm also going to add the glue to these 2 fins here. Since it's going to be freestanding like this, I need it to be really strong. So I put the glue on both surfaces and I let it sit for 2 minutes before I put them together. I'm just going to stand that right on top of the wood block. And I was surprised how quickly this glue kind of sets up and making it rather strong. It's a rather thick glue. And I just make sure that it's on their level. And we're just going to display this piece as actually just a piece of art. And it was really fun trying that technique, adding that material, that pet bedding into this. You would never guess that's what it is. It's like a hamster bunny paper bedding that you use for small pets. You can find that at the grocery store, the pet store, or whatever. But I think it looks so beautiful embedded in the resin. So this is how our little resin whale project turned out. Now this is also from that same mold kit. This is the fish. It's a little bit larger than the other ones. It holds actually 4 ounces of resin when I tested it with my water. So I'm actually going to mix up 4 ounces, so 4 of the bottles from Dollar Tree, 2 B's and 2 A's. I'm going to try something kind of really cool with this. I want it to look almost like a rainbow fish effect. So I'm going to do that by using a couple of different things. We're going to be using resin. We're going to be using the mica powder from Dollar Tree. And we're also going to be using sequins with this. So I absolutely love how this turned out. It was definitely an experiment, but I wanted to try something fun. So I picked 3 bright colors of the mica powder, the blue, the green, and the orange. And I want it to kind of look a little bit like a rainbow fish. If you remember that like childhood book. The rainbow fish is very colorful and shiny. I kind of want it to look almost like a tie-dye effect. So I'm starting with the orange and I'm going around like just the border of the fish to give like an orange like kind of border background. And just kind of experimenting with this. So I just make sure I get a nice coating of that. Switching paintbrushes, I'm going to switch to the blue. For the blue, I think I'm going to do like just kind of like spots, different areas of it, and just kind of painting that on. And I really loved working with this powder. I think it's so shiny and pretty, and it gives such a beautiful effect on the resin. You can also paint resin. I've heard that you really should use like an enamel paint. If you're painting on resin, it works really well for that. But I really liked experimenting with the different pigment inks, the different dyes from Dollar Tree, and these different powders. It's a really cool way to color your resin. So for the green, I did spots as well. And then I just kind of tried to blend everything together to make it look like a swirly mixture of colors, just to provide a really subtle variation in color. Since the fish is kind of large, I don't want it to be consistently all one color. I thought if I mixed all these colors together, it would make it more interesting. So this is the resin that I mixed up. If you do notice some bubbles in there, you can just use your heat gun to get rid of the bubbles before you even pour it in. And we're just going to pour in our resin now that we have all of our mica powder on there. It's always a good idea to put your tray down first before you start pouring that in. And I'm going to go ahead and do the other 2 ounces, filling this fish up completely. I wasn't sure how that pattern was going to turn out, but it actually turned out pretty good. Just again, making sure I don't have any bubbles. A lighter works really well for that. You're going to want to avoid using a torch on the silicone molds because you don't want to ruin your molds. We're going to let this fish sit overnight, and let me show you how it turned out. It actually is really cool and shimmery, but very subtle as well. Since the silicone is clear, the design is very kind of faint, but I like it. I think it's going to work well with the other idea I had to decorate this fish. I want to use this fish piece and make it into a piece of coastal art. So I had a little bit of a lip on this, and so again, I'm just going to trim that up with a razor blade. It works pretty well, and it's a pretty cool fish design. Again, it's still flexible at this point, and I'm going to combine it with a couple items from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use one of their canvases. That one is actually from the Shore Living line this year at Dollar Tree with a coral. And these little wood signs from the Dollar Tree are almost exactly the right size for these canvases if you want to frame yours. It's a little bit too small, and I'm going to show you how I kind of get around that. They do have a hanger on the canvases, so I always like to save those for other DIY projects. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove that first. And I just wanted a very simple, like not very colorful background to this. But you know what? It would look really good with some of their ocean canvases as well. As you can see, I could actually put this one in there. Sometimes they fit, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I have to remove like one side to get it to fit, but it was fairly loose here on the top, so I was able to get it to fit in there with a little bit of splitting on the corners. I'm just going to reinforce the top with a few more staples to make sure it stays on there. And I'm not too worried about the gaps in the corners because we're going to decorate that kind of plain frame anyway. Now I thought I could use some of the sequin sheets from the Dollar Tree. This is like the lavender one that I have from the Easter section, but they have these in the Crafter Square as well. And it doesn't really matter because you're not going to be able to see that color through it too much. But I want to use the sequins as scales like that. So it's going to look really shiny and beautiful from different directions. So I just make sure that I have all my sequins like facing the same direction. And since I'm gluing to the resin again, I know I need to use a really strong glue. So I'm using that Gorilla Glue Clear Grip again. And I'm just going to cover the entire back of the fish with that, spreading that out with a paintbrush. It does dry crystal clear, so I think it's going to work well for this. And it's going to be a lot stronger than Mod Podge or something like that I could use to attach the scales. So I make sure my sequins are kind of going the right direction, like fish scales would be. And I simply glue that to the back, kind of pressing that in all around the edges and letting that start to dry. I went ahead and attached it before I cut the fabric down to size because the sequins can be a little tricky to cut because a lot of times you're cutting through like, just like a half a sequence, and it does have that black fabric on the back, and I don't want you to be able to see any of that. So I'm just using some tiny sharp scissors to try to kind of cut those individual sequences. It's going to kind of make a mess when you're cutting this out, so beware. But the small scissors helped me on the small areas there that I had to go around on the fish. But I just kind of took my time and cut it as close as I could to the fish without really cutting any of the resin or anything like that. And we have our shimmery rainbow fish. It turned out so fun. So I'm going to put it on the coral canvas like that. I'm going to go ahead and start preparing my frame. I'm just going to use some macrame cord that I had to make a simple hanger. And I wanted to disguise the frame. I'm actually going to do a really fun rope border on this. But I do need a hanger as well. So just feeding that through the macrame cord, it's going to be the same color as the Dollar Tree rope that I'm using. So it's going to match well. And it's going to be easy to hide that thin rope behind the other rope we're going to attach. Now we still need to attach the fish. Now, since that I have the fabric on the back, now I feel like I can use hot glue effectively. So I put hot glue on the back of the sequins fabric and glue that onto the Dollar Tree canvas. You could do that before you put it in the frame as well, but it seemed to stick pretty well, even though it's kind of an open back there. But you can see some of that fun fish shimmer we have going on this DIY. And then let me show you how I do the rope frame. So I start with the Dollar Tree white rope. This is the thinner one of the two that they have right now. And I'm gluing that to the left side. I made sure to leave an end on the end so that I can do the final knot to kind of make it look seamless here in the end. Then I just do a simple knot like this with the one piece of rope, feeding it all the way through. And depending on how you tie this, which direction you start with, will determine if the rope comes out from under or over like that. I wanted mine to come out under on the side that I tied it on. And so like the rope comes out from underneath that knot. And I'm going to try to repeat that same pattern all the way around. So I hot glued it to the top, and then I am feeding it through another knot, trying to make sure the rope comes out on the bottom on the side towards me. So I can kind of continue that same kind of knot pattern all the way around. And we're going to do a really simple rope border like this. So again, I use some hot glue to attach it. It's going to disguise that plain like MDF frame. It's also going to disguise the corners that were kind of gapped open on this. And the rope is always going to make it look really coastal and fun. So again, for the third corner, I do the same kind of knot. And if you find that your knot is kind of going the wrong direction, you can always untie it pretty easily and try it the other way. Now I'm going to cut off some extra rope here at the end. So now I have 2 tails, and I'm just going to simply try to knot that together, making it appear like the other knots and attaching that with hot glue. And then I can trim off the excess rope. And you're going to have to kind of hot glue your ends down to make sure they don't ravel out. I really don't want you to be able to see where the rope frame starts and where it stops, which is why I left extra rope there so I could have a knot on all 4 corners. I think that looks really good with that coral canvas and with our shimmery resin fish. I absolutely love how this turned out. It's such an interesting piece and a really fun idea of something else creative that you could do with Dollar Tree resin. Now, these pictures, I don't think really do it justice because you can't see that shimmer effect of the sequins. And so I will include a video here as well so I can show you how beautiful this looks as you're walking by it. See the shimmer? Doesn't it give you like that rainbow fish vibe? I absolutely love it. And the subtle like mica powder really gives it a little bit of color variation. Hey guys, have you checked out my new website yet? It's craftybeach.net. Whenever I post YouTube videos, I'm going to be making a blog post over on my website at craftybeach.net. And when you go there, this is what you will find. So you'll find a blog post for each one with a photo. You can click on the photo to go to that blog post. I tried to update this a little bit with some of the 4th of July. I need to get everything on here. I'm actually going on a lot of vacations here in the next couple of weeks, so I might have some extra time to work on this while I travel. But when you click on the link, it'll take you to the blog post where you'll find a photo of each DIY from that video that you can then pin on Pinterest so you can remember you want to make that DIY. If you scroll down, you can find the DIY video that is from that post. I'm going to have everything organized by season. I just started the spring, so right now I have 4th of July, coastal, Easter, spring, and tier trays. I also have helpful links on there like my Amazon shop for the items that I recommend for my videos on there. And I even have like a link to my Etsy shop for those fun like crafting and meme printables that you guys love so much. So be sure to check it out. It's my brand new website. I'm super excited about it. It is craftybeach.net. Now back to the DIYs. For this one, what we're going to use is another one from that kit. This one is the jellyfish mold. The volume I found on this one was 3 ounces. So I'm actually going to have a little extra. I'm going to mix 4 ounces for this. And I'll just have some extra that I can use on another project. And again, just mixing B and A together for this first part. What I want to do is using those Dollar Tree glass beads again, do a really beautiful jellyfish. A lot of times they have like a really fun pattern or texture on the jellyfish that make them really beautiful. And I think I can get that with the glass beads. I'm going to leave my resin clear on this one so that the glass beads can really shine and you can see these really well. So again, I just mixed up 2 batches of the resin. So total of 4 ounces really, even though I only need about 3. And you know what? You can take the beads and actually add them to your resin. Anytime you have an add-on and you add it to the resin before, it can help avoid air bubbles after adding it to the resin. One thing I have found is you always want to add resin to your mold before you put other things in there, because it's really going to increase the chances of like air bubbles forming on the surface of it. And so I just chose a couple different colors of the blue beads and I load them into the cup. That way I can stir them, mix them in all together. And then I'll probably add the rest of them just freehand. I'm going to use all of the beads I have left in that package except for the long skinny ones. I think that might kind of take away from the jellyfish pattern that I want to do with this one. But for this part of the jellyfish, like the main body part, that's where I want all of these beads to be. So I just kind of dump that out in there. The resin will kind of spread out around. But I just kind of want these beads to be kind of random and centrally located right here in the center part of the jellyfish. And then I'm just going to add more and more. I love these glass beads. I'm definitely going to have to be picking up more of these because I think they're so beautiful, especially in a resin project like this. And then I'm going to take the rest of my clear resin and we're going to fill up those tentacles. Just like the octopus, is a little challenging. If you tilt it slightly, you can get it to go down each one of the tentacles until it is filled with resin. Now the tentacles are a little bit trickier for the beads. You just kind of have to hand place them. So again, I'm using the blue glass beads and just kind of scattering those out evenly on the tentacles. Now, since I'm not using like any color or pigment on this one, I would still want it to be really colorful. So that's why I'm using as many of the glass beads as I can to really provide some color to this piece. Now, these glass beads are like kind of a cornflower blue color. They're a little bit different, so I'm going to kind of scatter those around like the edge of the jellyfish body. And I'm going to randomly kind of mix it in with the mixture I have in the middle as well. And I'm going to go ahead and use all of them. I might as well and make this as colorful as I can. So I kind of spread those out on the tentacles, the body, wherever they will fit. And you can kind of move stuff around at this point. Everything's still really wet. And I found that the Cricut weeder or like a toothpick is really good for that. I let my jellyfish sit overnight and it's time to demold and see how this one turned out. A little tricky getting this off. Again, it's a little bit flexible at this point, so just going to take your time. It will harden up and it won't be flexible once it finishes curing, but it's definitely set up well enough to take the mold off. And if you wanted your tentacles to be kind of skewed at this point, you could mold them and kind of make them go however you want. I want my piece to be flat. And I did find a small part here, like on one of the tentacles, where I did have a little bit of extra resin. And again, I'm just going to trim that off. It's still fairly flexible at this point, so razor blade or scissors work well for that. But look how beautiful and colorful this glass bead jellyfish turned out. I thought this would make a really fun sun catcher as well. I think I'm going to hang this one in my kitchen. So again, I'm going to use an eyelid screw for the hanger. And since it's still fairly soft, I can just screw that in without having to pre-drill a hole in there. I just thought that that would be easier and kind of make it a little bit stronger. Once it starts getting a little bit harder, I switch to a pair of pliers and just screw that in the top, and it gives me a really nice hanger on there that doesn't really take away from the piece at all. And again, we're going to be using some of those suction cups from the Amazon. And I'm going to tie it up with just some fishing line as well, so you can't really see the hanger. So again, I just knot that, double tying that around the suction cup. You can find suction cups that have like the hole drilled through them. These are just plain suction cups, so they don't have that, but you could always drill that or cut that into it if you needed it. And then I'm going to string the fishing line through my jellyfish hanger, and we're going to simply tie this up to hang it. I'm going to hang this in my kitchen window. I think it's going to look so pretty with all of the colorful glass beads in there and the beautiful jellyfish shape. Let me show you how it looks hanging in my window. With all of those beautiful glass beads in there, I love this. I love jellyfish. They're one of my favorite creatures. I think they're so beautiful. And this really reminds me of a jellyfish with like the dots and the pattern on the tentacles and the body of the jellyfish. So this was another fun sea creature resin project. Now this mold is actually from the Dollar Tree. This is just their square coaster. And I wanted to see if I could do like a fun like coaster or display project with this one using some seashells that I found at the beach in Sanibel. So I'm going to mix my resin up. Let me check the volume on this one. This one will hold up to 4 ounces of resin. And I actually used a little bit more than that because I had that leftover resin from my other project. So I start with the clear resin, and this is going to be a multiple pour project because I want to embed these things in there, and items like to float in resin. So I start with this really cute little blue starfish. It's not a real starfish. It's something that I picked up on Temu as well, but I thought it was colorful and pretty. And so I combined that with these really cool little seashells that I found at Sanibel Island the other day. I'm going to do a variety and kind of lay them out kind of like a collection. So kind of an L shape around the starfish. And then what I'm going to do is let this sit for about 3 hours until it starts to harden so the items won't float in the final project. That's why I'm doing it in multiple pours. So it's sticking now, nothing's going to float, so we can start working on some more resin. This is that leftover resin I had, and so I just mixed some of that blue and the green dye from the Dollar Tree in there to try to give me like kind of an ocean color background for this. And I'm going to start pouring that over the shells. Now, I was trying to not waste that resin, so there's not a whole lot in there, but it was enough to get me started with this. And this is just going to be a really fun coastal coaster. Dollar Tree has these square ones. They have like heart-shaped ones. They even have like the thinner, like round ones that I've used from Dollar Tree. And they're all really cool for coaster projects, or you could even put this on its side and kind of use this as a display piece. But it's a fun way to display your shells that you found on the beach. So again, I want that ocean blue color, so I just use a combination of the blue and the green dye from those little 4-packs from Dollar Tree Plus, and mix the colors till I'm happy with it. I don't mind if there's a little variation in blues and greens. It's going to make it look more like the ocean. And I'm going to fill up my coaster with that. Now, if you left it like that, you're going to have like the clear on the front with the shells. So kind of displaying that clearly with the blue ocean water in the back. I found that I overfilled mine slightly. It was leaking out. So I do have some resin tape that I picked up on Amazon that you can use for taping edges and to do walls for resin projects. So I'm actually going to use that to tape on here so that it doesn't really leak out anymore, because again, I used a little bit more resin than I was supposed to on that project. And then to get rid of the air bubbles, I just kind of used my heat gun. And then I thought I would experiment with some glitter. Now, I think I might have liked this better without the glitter, but I know a lot of you guys like glitter, so I wanted to try it. This is some of the blue glitter from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to sprinkle this on that top coat, it's still wet, of the resin to give some blue glittery background to this coaster, and it definitely gave it a shimmery look. I let this coaster sit overnight, so now it's time to unmold it. I just removed all of the tape, and you can see I had some extra resin on the sides. You can kind of tear that off, cut it off. If you're going to cut it off, be careful. You don't want to like accidentally cut your like silicone mold, but it's probably better not to overfill it like I did. And then I just removed the mold, and this is what we have for the coaster. Really shows off those beautiful shells that I found on my beach walk and that fun little starfish as well. I did still have a little bit of overhanging on this from the overfill, and I was able to trim that up with a pair of scissors. But the glitter background, it's kind of fun and interesting. This is how mine turned out. I think it's really pretty. What do you guys think about my little seashell and starfish coaster idea? I think it turned out really fun. I think I might have liked it a little bit better without the glitter, but it was a fun technique to try. And the 2 pour is definitely necessary on this one to keep those shells on the front where you can see them. And I hope you got some really great Dollar Tree resin crafting inspiration today. Don't be afraid to try it. It's really fun. Just take proper precautions, mask well-ventilated area and stuff like that. But you can make some beautiful sea creatures like I made with some Dollar Tree resin. Be sure to comment your favorite in the comments below and enjoy the final reveal.
Just wait. Wait for better days to come and carry us like wind in our sails. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore. 7 years now on this boat, and we all know where we belong. Just wait. For our home to show on the horizon, soon we'll be there. Hold on tight, I can smell the shore, it's right in front of us if we just hold on tight. This vision that I saw is getting closer every dawn. We are dreamers of the shore when we can't read the sky. We just sail with the wind that we've got. And when we're drowning in doubt, just keep on believing. We are dreamers of the shore.
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of today's video. And I want to give a huge thank you to all of my Crafty Beach Bumps for supporting my channel here on YouTube. Thank you to Karen O'Haron, Melinda Elizabeth, Jamie Job, Susan Edmonds, Tracy Knight, Nancy Wunner, Janae Farrington, Julie Miller, Pamelia Wren, Maria Grace, Donna Schreiner, Sandy C., Debbie DeLay, Ariana's Mama, Live Another Day, Tracy Wooldridge, and our newest member, Marin Christensen. Thank you so much for your support. It means so much to me. If you'd like to become a Crafty Beach Fun member, all you have to do is click the join button under today's video. It's $4.99 a month. You're free to cancel anytime, and you're going to get early ad-free access to my videos here on YouTube. Now, would you like more resin DIY ideas? Check out my resin video right here. And until next time, happy crafting.